I saw a TV ad last Sunday showing a satellite picture of the Earth. It said that if it wasn't for someone challenging the common wisdom, the world would still be flat. I thought, is that right? The common wisdom at that time didn't make the world flat. It never was flat, and scientific evidence proved that the world is not flat, not then or not now. Today, the common wisdom is that everything is okay with the climate. Climate change is natural, and what humans do doesn't affect it. Well, scientific evidence says no again. With a high degree of certainty, science says the world is warming, mostly due to heat-trapping gases being put into the atmosphere through power plant smokestacks and tailpipes of cars and trucks. As a result, glaciers worldwide are melting, seas are rising, and weather patterns are expected to become more extreme. Lately, the world has been experiencing many extraordinary weather events, and there have been record-breaking heat waves and drought in Texas and Russia, extreme drought in the southwestern United States, and famine in the Sudan. There have been massive floods in Vermont, Illinois, last year in Australia and Pakistan, and last week in Thailand. And there have been devastating tornadoes in Missouri and Tennessee. Something unusual is happening, and we don't yet know enough to prove these events can be attributed to climate change. But what we do know is that the world continues to get warmer, and extreme weather events like these are likely to become more common and more severe. Devastating floods, droughts, and hurricanes could easily happen here in southeast Florida, which is especially vulnerable to sea level rise and storms due to its low, flat topography, porous geology, and subtropical climate. In addition to sea level rise, periods of drought are predicted to be longer and more intense. Torrential rainfall will be even more intense, and a higher percentage of hurricanes are likely to be Category 3 or higher. According to a study from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Miami was ranked number 1 among the world's major port cities in economic assets at risk, that is. And that's a number 1 designation I'd rather not have. And they also rated Miami number 4 in terms of population at risk. Today, Florida Atlantic University is releasing a research study about the effects of sea level rise and other climate change impacts on Southeast Florida's water infrastructure, including its water supply and stormwater drainage systems. We were not surprised that rising seas will increase saltwater intrusion of our water wells, but we were surprised to find that as little as 3 to 9 inches of sea level rise can reduce the capacity of the region's stormwater drainage systems by 30 to 70%. And based on latest current global projections, there is a 95% probability that sea level will rise by at least 3 inches by 2030, and by more than 9 inches within just 40 years. There's a good chance that this could happen even sooner. We're not talking about 70 to 100 years from now. Toward the end of the century, 2 to 3 feet of sea level rise is expected to inundate the beaches, waterfront property, and the Florida Keys. But the reality is that Southeast Florida is already having less obvious problems with saltwater intrusion, loss of capacity of coastal floodgates, and coastal inundation during spring and fall high tides due to sea level rise resulting from climate change to date. And they are getting worse with each passing year. Sea level rise is creeping up on us, and within a few decades it could put the region in serious jeopardy by overwhelming our stormwater drainage systems. Our research also found that sea level rise will amplify the effects of other climate change impacts, such as drought, the intensity of thunderstorms, and hurricane storm surge. As a consequence, saltwater intrusion, water shortages, and coastal flooding and wave damage will increase when hurricanes are on top of a higher ocean. We are most concerned about the near-term potential for severe flooding during heavy rainstorms because the floodgates are losing capacity with just a few inches of sea level rise. We alerted local policymakers to the urgency of these problems, but the public at large doesn't yet know or understand that this is happening and what it's going to cost. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is planning to add huge pumping stations to 3 flood control structures in North Miami-Dade County. Together they will cost about $250 million, with a capital B. And over the next 40 to 50 years, another 12 pumping stations will be needed at a total cost of about an additional $1 billion. This will present major economic challenges, especially when you consider that this is only one element of the investments that will be needed to improve the region's resilience to climate change. Another major threat is that sea level will impact the Everglades National Park and other coastal wetlands. As sea levels rise, salt water will creep northward in the Everglades and convert freshwater prairies and hardwood hammocks into saltwater marsh and mangrove swamps, displacing endangered wildlife habitat and eventually jeopardizing one of Miami-Dade County's largest freshwater well fields. What's newsworthy about our study is our finding that climate change is already beginning to affect Southeast Florida, and that only inches of sea level rise can significantly affect the water systems over the next few decades. We need to start planning for these eventualities and for the investments that will be needed to counteract them. Getting back to common wisdom will not protect our water supply or prevent massive flooding if we don't start preparing now. If we keep our heads in the sand, and we're not going to see what's coming, and our heads are going to get very, very wet. Thanks for your attention.